inside baseball lingo. We're live on YouTube and we're live on TikTok. And we're going to duel up here with our.
Yep. And I'm trying to find you on TikTok because I am
There
live
we
on
go. I
TikTok.
got you. I just did the invite.
Perfect. All
There we
right.
go.
Look at my Febreze bottle up there. You can see it on TikTok. You can't see it on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Get everything straight. Like, oh my goodness. My gosh, we're just technical wizards in this place.
We absolutely are nothing of the
Oh my
sort.
gosh. How many
There we go.
people like to join and not join? And, I love it when they pop in and immediately out. They see us and like, nope.
Nope. Thanks.
Yep.
Got
No
this.
part of that.
Yeah.
You're not selling crappy t-shirts? Then no thanks. We're not in.
You kind of get a different angle for me from my phone here because I don't have a good place to put my phone. But that's all right.
Yeah, I
I
know
find
it's
that that's
a little
fine.
bit different.
Yeah.
Because we're using I don't know if nobody's in either one of these, I don't think. So
It doesn't it's really fine. But I'm excited to be back on live and doing a Q&A. And I think yesterday, Mike, we were here on YouTube and we talked a little bit more just in general terms about brand and brand strategy and why strategy is important and why strategy is different than tactics. And, you know, um, kind of went off on a few tangents there, but we do have some specific questions though. So
yeah.
we're going to use the next hour to get through those. Um, so let's start with this one. We're
Okay.
spending money on ads and content, but our revenue is flat. How do you even start to figure out what's not working?
Okay. That one happens to everybody. Plateau.
Mhm.
We have that as one of
Yes.
our archetypes that we see in businesses. But yeah, where do you start? I don't know. So revenue's flat. So I say you work backwards from the money. And so you look at each stage of your process and where do you earn your money at? So where are things breaking down? Revenue's flat. So did your conversion rate drop then? Because you're still spending on ads and you're putting out content. So where is the drop? Did conversion rate drop? Has your average order value dropped or your ticket, whatever, if you're e-commerce or if you're service? You know, maybe you've lost retention and so you're not getting
Mhm.
repurchases. So your acquisition's still going good. You got to start looking for where have things changed in in your benchmarks for the last quarter, the last half a year, the last year, your historical numbers that you're tracking or should be tracking so
Right.
that you can spot problems like this. So that's where, I'd start looking, but you work backwards until you spot a change in a number
A change in
and
a
you
trend,
figure it out.
correct. It's really interesting, I think, if you're an e-com brand, you should be doing at least like weekly updates on your revenue on some key performance indicators, right? Some
Mhm.
KPIs. So, you obviously are going to look at your retention. You're going to look at your acquisition. Look at the key things that are changing. Like you said, Mike, like let's take a kind of a broad overview. And let's say you're an e commerce brand and you're tracking your revenue, your conversions, and your AOV, right? Your average order value. Very high level. Has that changed? It has to have, right? Like if you're asking like how do I audit what's broken, then separate your channels, your acquisition channels, your retention channels, and see what has changed in those specific channels, right? So like on your retention channel, has your open rate changed? Has your click rate changed? Has your conversion changed? On a flip side of that for ads, how are they doing? What's your ROAS? Are you getting the same click rate that you did with your previous ad set? Look at all of those details. Unfortunately, you're going to have to spend some time. And I say unfortunately, because a lot of people kind of miss this and they just throw more money at ads and they send more emails and SMS. But you need to sit down and you need to look at what metrics have changed so you know what lane you need to fix first, right?
Yeah.
Um, just throwing more money at ads and more money or more messages out there to consumers or deeper discount codes is might alleviate the problem really quickly, but it will not fix it long term. If you're a service business, Mike, you can talk a little bit more, I think, in detail on that because I don't, you have a much broader knowledge of service-based businesses than I do, and how they should kind of address that. But you need to audit every marketing channel.
And it happens in businesses, service based, especially on the e-com side, like what you said, that we see people do is they start chasing. And
Right,
if their revenue starts to flatten out and plateau, they'll start chasing things. And if
right.
they
Don't
send
do
an
that.
email and it got X revenue, then sometimes they start thinking like, well, if I got X revenue from one email, if I send 10 emails, I'll get 10X revenue,
It never
right?
works like that,
Yeah,
ever,
it doesn't
for
work
any
that way.
reason. It is just not how
Or
it
they
works. Don't do
we
it.
just need to spend more on ads and so
Yeah,
that happens on the ecom side. In service-based businesses, if your revenue's going down, sometimes you're looking at retention. Are you losing some of
yeah,
your clients or customers so that you were counting on for revenue on your
yeah,
projections? You're just thinking we're going to keep a baseline of our business always, right? And then you're looking at acquisition as a different piece of it. So do you have a retention problem and you're bleeding, um, or is it an acquisition problem? And because on
right.
the service base, it's one of those things. Typically, it's an acquisition or it's a
Or
retention because your
retention. Mhm.
prices. You're not like a consumer product where you're putting things on sale and you
Right.
know offering lots of different things. If you're an accountant, you have work that you do and you sell some basic. You have your services, and this is what you have.
Right.
So your
Right.
prices don't change too much. So your ticket value, your AOV or whatever, your average customer value is probably within a pretty standard range. So it's an
Yeah.
acquisition
And it's a
problem or it's a retention problem.
right. And I think, this is where you do actually have to do your due diligence and audit everything. It's why reporting is so important. I think people
Mhm.
rely on a single report, like an overview. For example, I work with a ton of e-com businesses, right? So like they like to look at Shopify, for example, and I'm going to look at my Shopify revenue and I'm going to look at my acquisition, my channels, where the traffic is coming from. What's my traffic? What's my conversion rate? What's my AOV? What's my revenue? But if those metrics change, you have to do a deep dive into other channels to prevent you from ever having to be in a situation where you are 3 months in and you're having to like now go back and audit every single thing. You should have standardized reporting for all of your
Yeah.
marketing channels, right? So that's something that I would recommend weekly, bi-weekly, however, if you have time to really just go at least, I don't know, at least monthly. You have to audit all these, like have reporting on all these things so that you can see the trend of metrics changing before you're ever in a situation where you're like, my revenue has been flat for 2 months. I'm spending the same money. I'm not growing. What's the problem? Right. Then you're just really like you're already too deep in. So that's at least my take on
Yeah.
it. I don't know, but
I'm
you
old
know,
on reporting, and I think that the closer you are to the one doing the work, you probably need to do more often reporting. So
right.
I track things daily.
Yes, you
I may
do.
not report that to
Right.
clients and the execs or anything, but
Right.
I track things daily and I actually use a
Right.
spreadsheet. I don't like You can turn that into a dashboard, but
Right.
I don't like the API connections and I don't like the automated reporting because I feel like then it's easy for you to lose connection to those numbers.
Yeah, that can easily
When you're
happen for
entering
sure.
something in a spreadsheet every day, you will see trends quickly and you will
Yeah.
spot immediately when something is off.
Yeah.
And maybe you're better at it. I don't know, on a dashboard. Maybe you see, I don't know. I don't. I don't like that. I don't do it that way.
Yeah.
You create the dashboards for the execs because they don't need the granularity in numbers unless they're
Right.
asking for it. But typically, they're not going to want granularity. They just want to know overall.
They
Arrow
just want
pointing up,
overall
arrow pointing
metrics.
down. Where are we? We good? We bad? What's up?
Yeah. If
You're the
you're
one who needs to be able to explain exactly what's going on. So you need to
yeah,
know in
right.
detail what's going on.
It's
you know,
really, I
and you need
mean,
to know just in case, because you never know when a CEO is going to dig in and start asking you some
mhm,
pointy questions. They'll do it.
yeah. Yeah, and you need to be
Hmm.
prepared to answer those for sure. Another question that we get a lot, Mike, and I'll ask, I guess, like, I'll do the actual questions here. We have one person in marketing doing everything, which happens so much in small businesses, and
Hmm.
sometimes
And
it's the
more and
business
more in
owner.
bigger businesses too.
Yeah. At what point should we be thinking about outside help versus hiring internally? I
Hmm.
know you've had some
Is
strong
there a rev
opinions about.
number? Yeah. And if when you get to a revenue number, so think about like a marketing is going to cost you 50, 60 grand a year, probably somewhere
Mhm.
in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So if you're not at 500K in revenue, probably
Mhm.
somewhere in that neighborhood, we think 500 or more. If you're underneath that, you might be able to find some contractors to do some things for you or cheaper overseas for less, but you know,
Yeah.
it's going to be even agency side or contractor if you go on Upwork or anything, 2,500 a
Yeah.
month. And to hire internally as a first is I never think is a good idea because you can't afford somebody who actually knows enough of what they're doing. You're going to hire your
Mhm.
niece or your nephew or something, and then you're going
Right.
to expect them to know everything and do everything. And even if you're going to have them hire an agency, they don't know how to manage an agency either, or even what to do with that.
Yeah.
So usually what you want your first thing to be is fractional, somebody like us who can help you set
Yeah.
things up and manage your, you know, the numbers and things. But
Yeah.
I think you gotta be more than 500 probably, just
Probably.
as a budget wise thing,
Yeah.
so that you're keeping marketing at 10% or so is the goal.
Yeah.
If you're e-commerce, you should be up to probably 20% for your marketing.
Right.
But in general, people want to be 5 to 10%.
Mhm.
And
Of
early
your
on, it's
yeah.
gonna be an investment, so that marketing number will be a little bit higher. You won't be able to get efficiencies yet and bring that marketing percentage down and really see
Right.
ROI, and that's a scary thing too for businesses
Very,
because 'cause
yeah.
they're thinking, "Right now I'm paying 0% and I do about 500 and I'm handling it. If
Right.
I have to give up, you want me to give up 60 grand a year, that's money out of my pocket. No, I'm not doing that," you know? So they
Right.
don't.
I
So,
think too it matters, like you said, Mike, like where you are revenue wise, but also, um, a lot of small businesses, they can't afford to hire internal resources, right? Because they will go through and, um, they will, that resource requires, if you hire somebody internally, there is a lot more to it than just their salary, right? Like you have to pay them as a W-2 employee. You have to do, um, you have to make sure that that person has benefits, that person has all the logistical things that come with hiring a full-time employee. And really there's of course benefits to having marketing people in house who know your brand, who are dedicated to your brand, who know your operations, your logistics, like they're living and breathing your business, on the daily versus hiring contractors. But don't dismiss contractors though. We get a lot of the times, I think we get told, that contractors, oh, I've had such a bad experience with this person or that person. But I think there's definitely value to contract, or fractional staff until you are at the point where it makes sense for you to hire internally.
mhm,
I think there's, um, because it just, you have to make it make sense for your business. There isn't like a one kind of criteria that fits everybody in every industry, right? Like you have to make it make sense for your business. Sometimes, it can be a big liability on your small business to hire an internal person because again, you are hiring a W-2 employee, there's a ton that comes with that, right? Whereas you can test out a contractor short term, you know, um, and kind of figure out if that works for you. And then when it comes to hiring agencies, right, that's kind of a whole separate thing, understand you should do some due diligence when you're hiring an agency. You should ask for some references from their existing clients. You should ask, who is on the team? Do they have people staffed already? Are they hiring staff as you're signing on? There's definitely, I mean, we can, do a whole different live, I guess, on questions to ask an agency as you're hiring them. But
Yeah.
um, be conscious of the fact that like a contractor and an agency are two separate things, right? So you're hiring an individual versus a team of people. There are questions there to be asked. In both cases, references, just as if you were hiring internally. Ask for references, ask for clients that you can contact, that you can talk to. A lot of the times, and we've had this happen, right? We've had non-disclosure agreements with people where we cannot say who we're working for, right? They don't want their name mentioned in any of our case studies, or they don't want to be a reference to other clients. But there's clients who will gladly, be a reference for a contractor or be a reference for an agency.
Yeah.
Always ask for references. That's just my thought there on hiring, like, outside folks, right? Like hiring externally.
I
Um,
think there's a risk. I used to really, when I was an e-commerce CMO, wanted to bring everything in-house,
yeah.
but now I've had way more experience too since then and worked with a lot more service businesses and B2Bs. I'm not as sold on the
Yeah.
in-house teams anymore. And the
Yeah.
reason I actually think the model moving forward it should be very small internal team to manage things for you to keep your brand voice solid and to
Mhm.
maintain the knowledge base of the company. So it's like one or two internals and maybe one of them having graphic design and editing skill at least.
Yes. Yes.
And then you're using specialists on things. So you
Right.
hard to find a one-stop shop that can do everything well.
Yeah,
Most
agree.
most places can do everything, but they're typically specializing in one or two things.
Yeah.
Can do everything. Um, but
Yeah.
I think that's probably the way to go in the future for most businesses is
Yeah.
to manage external experts because then you can get the best. And the reason I say this is because what I have seen in internal teams now over the last decade,
Mhm.
internal teams get very comfortable and they
Right.
tend to stagnate because now they're
Yes,
working
I think
in
that
this one
happens
business.
in, yeah.
And then they're only
I
working in this one business, in this one field. So this is all they know now. And
Right.
when you're secure in marketing, because most of us, like we're agency folks, Nada and I, we're
Right.
externals now, and we're never secure.
Yeah.
We
Right.
always have to learn. We have to stay up to date on
Mhm.
everything that's going on. We have to know all the
Yep.
trending things that are happening. How are things
Yeah.
changing? What's going on? What are people doing? And we work with businesses in lots of different fields. So we see a lot of things and do a lot of different things.
Right.
We bring a lot of experience and up to date knowledge. The internal teams, they get pretty comfortable. And then they're the
Right.
ones who say, that's not how we do things here, or, we don't really do that, you know?
It's why a lot of marketing agencies too have pivoted to hiring contractors. So
Mhm.
they no longer hire and staff full-time employees, they hire contractors. Because there is, and I hate to use the hustle culture, terminology here, but there is a hunger that comes with being a contractor. Like
Yeah.
you said, Mike, like you have to stay on your toes all the time. You have to bring value all the time because you're an easy cut, right? Like it's easy to, and marketing is always the first to go anytime a business needs a cash flow boost, right? Or every time something is not going right, they will look to cut marketing expenses.
Mhm.
So we've had that happen with a couple of our clients over the last 30 days, right?
Yep.
We were cut as a strategic decision so that the business does not have to pay a consultancy fee to marketing. Never mind that the things we used to do for those businesses are not getting done. But it's a really, I think, like if you are a business looking to hire internally or externally, it depends on your situation. But to Mike's point, like consider external as is a good option. You don't have to be married to hiring full-time employees for marketing or even part-time employees. Consider contractors, because we contractors tend to, and this is kind of a, not a pat on a back for ourselves, but we tend to be efficient because we want to get things done and done quickly because we have other tasks to get to. We are we are constantly, learning new things, having to learn new things to stay competitive in the contracting market. So I think, like, there is no, one
Mhm.
answer to whether you should hire outside or look internally. If you are a company, though, I just heard Layla Harmozy talk about this morning. If you're a company that has a staff already. You have a marketing team, and maybe you need to increase that marketing team. You need additional resources. And you are like, should I hire outside or internal? Look at your internal folks that already like and work for your company. Layla Hermosi just I watched a video of hers talk about this, where she said she had everybody in her marketing team write copy and like come up with copy and creative for an ad campaign. And then they tested, of course, acquisition.com is huge, right? Like, if you guys don't know who I'm talking about, it's Alex and Layla Hermosi. They are huge, right? Huge in the space. And they have resources. So in their marketing team, she said, okay, we're going to run a campaign, and everybody in the marketing and the sales team is going to come up with copy and design for this marketing campaign, right? Everybody go ahead and put their campaign forward. We're going to run all of them and see who did the best. And the person whose campaign was the best performing, she did this some years ago, actually ended up being the person that was only there is an hourly, almost minimum wage employee who was scheduling the campaigns that everybody else was doing. She
Mhm.
was essentially like just a tasker, right? Like, she was there to schedule the campaign, to put it up on Meta, to set it up. She didn't write any of it. She didn't design any of it. She didn't drive any of it. That was her entire job, was just to set them up. And her campaigns performed the best, right? And so Layla, when she figured that out, then they looked at, how do we develop this person? How do we then develop her? How do we give her additional responsibilities? Obviously, she was hungry enough, and she was in those platforms day in and day out, right? Even though she wasn't writing the copy and the creative, she was aware of the things that were going on, and she had a really good talent for that. And then Layla was saying, like, well, she then grew into like a copywriter. Then the next creative step, next until she became a creative director, and then she went on to run her own agency, right?
Yeah.
So if you are already somebody who has an internal team, and you're looking that maybe like you need to hire an email marketing manager or somebody specifically to run your retention, but you have kind of a general marketing team, if you're already in that place and that's your business structure, maybe look internally. Talk to your team. You don't always have to hire externally. You can
Maybe.
promote, or,
So let me give you
um,
my perspective on that, because I've seen that, and here's why that
right.
just ticks me off to no end. And I've done this, like, sure, you can get good ideas from everybody else, but here's the problem. Everybody else already thinks they're a friggin' marketer. So you're always gonna get ideas.
There.
And it's super easy when you're not the marketing person, but they're like, "Hey, everybody, pitch ideas." Super easy to just throw a bunch of ideas out because
Yeah.
you have no skin in that game. If your idea is dumb or
Fair.
it fails or nobody liked it, nobody's going to say, "Ah, idiot, you're out.
Right.
You don't know anything about anything." Nobody was expecting anything of you. So
Right.
now they're like, "Hey, this person's a brilliant copywriter." Well, okay, and maybe, and I'm not saying I've had good ideas come from everywhere, but when you
Right.
don't have any skin in the game, it's super easy for you to think you're the marketing person. And I've got all these great ideas and they
Fair.
never listen to me,
Yeah.
guy in ops, IT guy, Helen in HR, you've all got
Right.
great ideas. I know they're great ideas, and great, let's try it.
Yeah.
Because I'm one who's open to, I don't know, try it.
Right.
Maybe it is a good idea. Try it. I don't know.
Maybe.
You
Yeah.
know, I don't claim to own all the best ideas in the world either. I have failed many times too, but I think most in marketing have. because I don't,
Yeah.
who knows? But, you know, doing that, and it's when they have no skin in the game, it's easy. It is easy to pick away from the sidelines, right? Everybody's the Monday morning quarterback, but you're not the one standing on the field with the 350-pound, you know, defensive lineman chasing you down. Yes, you could have done it. You would have done it if the coach put you in the game.
I
I
just
would, this business would be so much better if I were running the marketing. Okay, try
yeah,
it.
try it. Yeah. I
Again,
mean,
it's
I
not
think
rocket science, but it
right,
is a series of wins and losses and trial and error in marketing
right,
is really what we're doing, you
right.
know? And when you talk to somebody like Nada or me, what happens versus that one you want to hire out of HR?
Mhm.
Nada and I have had years of experience and we've had wins and losses. So there's a lot of things we've learned to not do.
True.
And if you want to hire that junior person who's cheap, you're going to pay for that training. You are the
Right,
on the job training for them. And those losses they're going to have, because they will, comes at
right.
your dime, on your dime.
Yeah.
You're teaching them. And then you took
And
that
hey,
person out
if
of HR and now they're the marketing person. They're,
right.
they'll learn enough to go then get a real job somewhere,
Yeah.
not doing
And
marketing at your little thing.
I think
So that's my perspective on it. And
slightly
Layla
cynical
or Mosey.
perspective. I don't know. I actually like the Layla Hormozi story, right? Like I like the idea of growing the talent that you might already have.
Sure.
Now, to be fair, you might not have the talent to grow, right? Like you might not actually have people in your company that you can grow into different roles. You might actually need outside help, right? So I think it just all depends on your situation. But I
Yeah.
think,
Hey, look, I did that at Grunstyle, right? Like, there's a
yeah,
guy that you and I both are friends with now, and he's moved on and he's been a director level, but he was a
right,
screen printer for us at Grunstyle, and I brought him
right.
into marketing, Alex,
Yes, and he
you
is
know,
amazing
because,
at what he
yeah,
does.
because I thought, I'm like, man, this guy is pretty funny. And that's what our number one marketing viewpoint at the time at Grunstyle was, can you be funny quickly online
Yeah,
with people? And he was funny. I'm like, I don't know. We could teach him other stuff he needs to know.
right.
Being funny, hard.
Yeah,
Can't teach
and
that.
having that
So we brought
brand
him in. He was a
voice that
screen
made
printer.
sense, right? Because
Yeah.
because to be fair, he had a brand voice that very much aligned with the company at the time. And it's
Mhm.
interesting that you bring up Grunt Style, Mike, because we both, for anybody watching, Mike and I met about 10, a little over 10 years ago now, 11 years ago in 2015 at Grunt Style, where Mike was a CMO. And I was hired on as a retention email at the time, just an email marketing manager. Retention was not a word that was used in a title, right? You were an email
Yeah.
marketing manager. And so I was, Mike hired me on, and we've kind of worked in some capacity ever since, right? And Grunt Style was an interesting company to work for because for those of you guys who don't know, Grunt Style is a veteran owned and operated company that was initially here in Carroll Stream, Illinois, and now they're in San Antonio. I was going to say Austin, but
Mhm.
that's not right. San
No, they're
Antonio,
in San
Texas.
Antonio.
They've moved.
Yep.
And they're still, I think veteran owned. I don't know. I don't want to speak out of
No,
term there. I
not
don't
anymore.
believe that they are. I think they're now owned by a VC
Yeah,
company.
they haven't been veteran owned
Um,
for a while. They
yeah.
try to claim
So
it, but they're not.
but we the interesting experience for us coming out of Grunt Style was that at the time that I started, so I can speak for myself, I started and I was like the 57th or 8th employee, right? By the time I left Grunt Style in 2018, we were at over 500 employees and the company had moved from Illinois to Texas, right? Still had some operations in Illinois, but had kind of moved the headquarters to Texas. And Mike and myself, we didn't go. We did not move with the company. But in the time that we were there, the company grew from being about like a 4 million a year company in 2015 when I started. I think it was even less than that to in 20 I remember 2018 numbers being close to 90 million a year in
Mhm.
revenue. This is an e-commerce at the time, no locations. Now they have a few locations where they sell merch, but this is an apparel company that was entirely e-com at the time that we were there. And so we both were part of that growth for the company, right? So the question that somebody asked us on LinkedIn, Mike, was okay, and specifically to you as the CMO of the company, you grew that brand from, a couple million to 80 plus million a year, right? As the CMO who led the marketing and the sales team there and customer service, which somehow fell under you as well.
I
What
wanted
were,
customer it used to
yeah,
be under ops, and I took it. I wanted it
yeah. So,
because I feel
um,
customer service is part of marketing actually, because it's about customer retention
right.
and
So,
taking care of people.
well, the question is, what were the 2 or 3 decisions that made the biggest difference at Grand Style in that growth from a couple million to 80 plus, right? To almost like triple digits, in millions there. What were
Um,
the 2 or 3 decisions that you made that made the biggest difference?
Boy, is there a 2 or 3? That's tough because it's always a series of decisions that you're making, and it's a series of surviving disaster, you know? Because we used to say back, like, gosh, if we only get to this number of sales, our problems will go away. I remember being naive like that. Like, man, can you imagine if we were doing this amount of revenue, we wouldn't really what could your problems possibly be? Like you'll have so much money coming in, right? Like, oh gosh, but it wasn't that. More money, more problems. Um,
Yep. I
One
was
of
just
the
gonna say
biggest
that.
things that we did actually that really turned things was a national TV commercial
Mhm.
and a national sponsorship in NASCAR. We sponsored a race vehicle, and then we ran a national TV commercial on NBC. So we
Mhm.
did that, and that really changed things. That was one of the bigger changes because it being an e-commerce only company, and we were only on Facebook.
Right.
That's where that company grew, existed. Wouldn't happen today. You couldn't grow the company today the way it happened then. It was right place at right
Right.
time to right message, just a lot of perfect storm things. But
Right.
um, a lot of people didn't trust you because you're seen just as a Facebook brand. But when we did that national TV commercial on NBC during uh, um, Homestead, the race in my Homestead, Miami, I can't remember what that race was called. Boy, that really changed things because it legitimized us. And
Mhm.
because I had to go through this whole process too for NBC to approve us to get approved by NASCAR, you know, and then we started working with the NFL, and then we had these
Right.
big deals. UFC, we did Dana White. But that
Right.
TV commercial and that first NASCAR deal changed things because it validated us as a legitimate brand. You're not just a bunch of t-shirt sellers. We had an audience,
Yeah.
we had a large dedicated audience who were fans. Then other people could see it, and it opened us up to a bunch of new markets and people who may not have been veterans themselves, but had close affinity for it.
Yeah.
So I still think that that national TV commercial, and I could tell you, shooting
Yeah.
that, we shot that in Torrance in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I
It was a
I
great
see the
commercial.
house. If you want to know the house, if you know the Alien Ant Farm video, actually, of their cover of Michael Jackson's Annie,
Yeah.
that video that the
That's
kids
true.
dancing in front of at the house, that's the
Yeah.
house we shot a good part of that commercial at. It was in Torrance,
Yeah.
not far from the house where they shot Boogie Nights too, but um,
Yeah.
that was a big thing. That first TV commercial, it was a proud time out there
Yeah.
for that, doing that. Dan
Yeah.
Alaric, the founder of Grunt Style, Dan and I wrote that commercial, and then we were out there together with the production company, also a veteran-owned group of people um, who made that. So it was a whole veteran effort to do this thing.
Yeah.
But that I would say, once
That was
that
the truth.
happened and we got
Right.
that validation, then all of a sudden everybody wants to work with you.
Right.
It's like anything in sales. Like you need that first sale. Getting your first sale is the hardest thing. But then all of a sudden people are like, oh, okay, if this other person did it, then they must be okay.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing. And then UFC was huge for us because
UFC was
we're
huge
seen by
because
so
they
many
did that.
people.
That was a contender. They did a UFC contender series, like it was like a reality show.
Well, that was
And
so not UFC. We had to call that was Dana White's thing specifically. So that was
thank
Dana
you.
White's Contender Series. That was a Tuesday
Right.
night fight series, and it was contenders who would get to come out and fight in front of their fight card guys.
Right.
And then, like, if you
Well,
would
such a cool
win in
show
that, you could get invited then
to
to
be
a
part
fight in
of.
UFC. But it was pretty
Yeah.
cool because it was a pay-per-view thing. Snoop was one of the
Yeah.
announcers for it.
Yeah.
Um, it was
I
that was a
remember that.
pretty cool thing. But then we sponsored a UFC, so we were in the rings, we were on the
Mhm.
mats at UFC fights. We had a fighter,
Yeah.
you know. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Raquel. It's
yeah,
it
Raquel Pennington. It was really
Paddington. And she was such a badass, but, and I
a cool
actually haven't
time.
followed her in
I don't
many
know if
years
she's
now,
fighting
or just kinda
anymore, but
disconnected, but
yeah.
she's probably still very much a badass. I don't know anything about her now. I think, Mike, one thing that was very unique to Grunt Style at the time, so this was again 2015, 2016, 2017, where content was not, um what I would call like a requirement. Now it feels like present day 2026, it feels like, everybody, no matter your profession, right? Doesn't matter what you do, to exist in a competitive way, you have to have social media channels. Your business has to have social media channels. You have to quote unquote create content, right? Like
Yep,
you have to actually put yourself out there. We talked a
yep.
little bit about that on the AMA live yesterday, right? But one thing that was very unique about grunt style at the time is that um, because we existed on social media, and it's how the brand grew on Facebook, right? Um, we were doing content all the time, and it was something that you were very, very like strict is not the word, but you were like, this, we have to do this, right? And it would come into question all the time why we were doing like funny, not sales videos, right? So this is where like Mike and Alex, you guys did the Alex Will Do It series, right? Which was a YouTube series that still exists. If you guys want to go in and check it out on Grunt Styles YouTube. I guess I'm promoting Grunt Style now, but like if you guys want to go check out Mike and Alex doing Alex Will Do It, was such a creative series. But even prior to that, even at the time that I started in 2015, we were doing as a company very funny videos. We had a videographer and a photographer in the house, Steve, who was very talented, and Steve Sabi. And like he did all these awesome videos that were
Mhm.
just funny, right? And like, I don't remember Rich, I want to say was his name, the manager who was only there briefly after I joined, was in some of these videos. The unique thing about Grunt Style was that we were so small, but the culture, I didn't come from a veteran background, right? No one in my family's in the military. I knew nothing about military, right? But I came in and was so welcomed, and the dynamic of the team, we all kind of, our personalities all fit, that we were all excited about the brand,
Yeah.
that so many of the employees wanted to be in the videos, right? And so Rich was in, those kind of like cynical hipster videos, like doing almost like a critique of Grunt Styles brand, right? Like we did those types of videos. We did just some funny ones. We did some fitness ones. There were a couple personalities like that,
Hump Day with
were
Rich
within
was
the
great.
company. And so we did content before content was a thing, I feel like.
Lieutenant Dick was another one of my favorite series.
Yeah, and I mean,
Oh,
now, by the
that was so
way,
funny.
I don't even know if this content for the most part, I know Alex Will Do It is still on YouTube, that you and Alex Vasquez did, like, that was a great series, but I don't know if
Yeah.
some of the early stuff is still on,
I don't know. Yeah.
because it would probably not be considered very appropriate or PC now, 10 years
No, it
later, right?
wouldn't.
Because it was a little bit, it was, the by the way, it was appropriate for the audience, right?
Yeah.
And it was funny, but it wasn't, none of it was created to sell something every single time. Not all of it was like a CTA at the end, like buy this t-shirt, right?
Mhm.
Which was what most people were doing at the time. If they were doing any content, they were doing it so that here's a motivational quote, but also it's on a t-shirt we printed, right?
Yeah.
Whereas we were doing content that was not, wasn't, it was designed for entertainment, to kind of project the type of personality and type of company we were, right? And I think that was a very smart decision to push on that and to have a cadence on that, where most companies were still doing something like it, but not consistently, and not like not well, is what I want to say, right? And like I remember conversations of like, why do we have a photo studio and why do we have a videographer? Like, we're a very small company, but you have all these creative people here, not the people that are designing the t-shirts and website design, website and email and all that
We
stuff,
had a
but we
we
had
had a big
people who were
design team though too.
specifically there
Mm.
to do content, and all of our imagery was actual lifestyle models, people that worked for the company that came from a military background, that were veterans themselves, that were excited about the brand, that wanted to be in the photos. It was a very unique thing, and I think it was a very smart decision, Mike, to make that was its own lane, and it had its own goals and creative, like it was this many videos have to come out a week, this many, static posts, this many
Mhm.
blah blah, right? Like, and it grew over time. And so I think that for me, one thing that I walked away with from Grunt Style was the fact that that was such a unique thing in that period of time. Now it's
Well,
completely different. Like,
not
now
just Run
everybody just
Style,
floods all kinds of content,
the veteran
you know?
community and the veteran entrepreneur community at that time was leading the way, I feel like,
Right.
on content because there was Ranger
Yeah.
Up was out there,
Yeah, Ranger
Black
Up was
Rifle
doing
Coffee
some
didn't
really
exist
funny
yet.
stuff.
Black Rifle didn't exist until we beat Ranger Up out of business and, Article
Yeah.
15 out of business, and then
Yeah.
those guys
Oh,
left
Article
there to go
15, I
with
forgot
Evan to
about those
start
guys.
Black Rifle Coffee. Article
Yeah.
15, that's Matt.
Yeah.
Ranger Up was, Tim Kennedy and Nick, and they're back. They're back in business now.
Yeah.
Nick is back in charge there, but, um they partnered with Article 15, but there was another company called 762 out at the time.
Oh,
He
yeah.
didn't do a whole lot of content. He was a trade show guy, but Yusha Thomas, Yusha, the drill sergeant, great.
Yeah.
And I've seen him recently because he's pivoted away from veteran content actually recently.
Yeah.
But Dan, Dan Katie, was that his last name? Dan, ASM
Katie.
DSS, awesome shit. My drill sergeant says.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dan, he was
There were a
great.
lot of I mean, there were a lot of
Yeah.
folks in that space. There's very
Stolen
few
Valor,
left,
what's his
you
name?
know?
Alex
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
Stolen Valor. There were a lot of military content creators and just doing funny stuff. And it was
Yeah.
that was
Such
a
a unique
thing. And it
time and
really and
place.
it we drove it always drove each other too. Nine Line came around too and they started doing stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, content, and I'm still a believer in content. And I know everyone does it now and it's kind of cliche, but it still works.
Right.
Why are these platforms here? Why are we
Yeah.
doing this?
Right.
What do
Yeah.
you because Nada and I are here doing this, and it's taking us nothing but our time. We don't have to pay for this. We
Right.
don't pay to promote it. We don't do anything. What else can you do to market your business? Other than
Right.
organic social media is free, really, other than your
Right.
time, and you're marketing your business. It doesn't work as well. Like we grew Grunt Style organically, and we did pay for ads on Facebook too, but organic
Yes.
was huge back then. It wouldn't be
Yeah.
today. Obviously, you can't. None of the platforms are going to let you build a business the way we built Grunt Style. And they knew
Yeah.
Grunt Style. Like I used to go out and meet with Facebook. They all
Yeah.
knew who we were. I met with names that in Menlo Park at Facebook, at Google, because they
Yeah.
knew us. But they're not going to
Yeah.
let that happen again,
Right.
you know,
But it's interesting. I
organically.
think I think
But
organic,
it still
this
is
is
free. It
the
still works. It still drives you
right.
traffic. It's a discovery tool now. It is not a conversion tool. But
Correct.
it's still a great way to get found, and then you can bring people to your content in other ways. Because that's
Right.
to me, people have their guards up on ads and your paid
Right.
promos and things like that. Your organic content lets people find you in a different way that's more accessible. And if they're
Right.
interested, they'll come check you out and learn more
Right.
about you. If they're not, great. You're not going to be a customer. I can't get everybody. I get, but it's a
Yeah.
great discovery tool and it's free. Why wouldn't you do
Yeah.
more of it? There's no restrictions on how much organic content you can make. Do as much as you can.
Do as much as you can and do it regularly, and it's still a thing. But I don't know, that's like my one takeaway in terms of like how that brand grew and what were some of the decisions that were made. I think that was a big one, right? I think it played a huge part in how that
That
brand
was
grew.
big. To
Yeah.
grow to that size, there's a lot of things that,
There's a lot
just
of
go
levers,
right.
right? It's not just one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of things and you're making mistakes and you're surviving
Yeah.
mistakes because a lot of great businesses went out because they didn't survive a mistake or a catastrophe that happened.
Right.
Before we moved to the big place in Carroll Stream, we had our little shop, and that's when I started was up in Schaumburg
Mhm.
on Remington, and it was a littler place, and that wasn't even the first place. Like
Right.
that was a move, but I wasn't part of the place before that. But we had a fire in that place one day,
I remember hearing of that
and it
story.
wasn't like a little thing. It was
Yeah.
scary because that's if you've ever been like in a t-shirt warehouse,
Yeah.
there's cotton dust and fibers everywhere. So
Yeah.
if you start a fire there, it's like at a gas station or something. Like that
Yeah.
place can go. It's like starting a fire in a grease hood if you're in a restaurant.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
So it
no.
was scary and it
Um,
like shut us down for a bit. And you're like, okay,
yeah.
what do we do? How do we survive this? We move on. We got hacked once. A former employee hacked us and didn't really hack. It was again, we were small, we didn't have great processes. This guy
Right,
got terminated and we didn't take away his access to everything immediately. So he got into our
right.
back end and was deleting orders and like
Oh my
changing
gosh.
addresses. He screwed up
Right.
so many orders, right? That
Oh
at our
gosh.
size, it was catastrophic. So what do you do? Do you tell customers like, "Hey, it wasn't really our fault. We had this thing, like, you gotta go with us," right? But we bit
Yeah,
the bullet and we ate it and we were making new things and taking care of
yeah,
people and it hurt,
yeah,
So it's like, do you survive these things? How do you take care of these problems that arise that could take your business out? Things come
right,
up in your business at any time that it could be the thing. This could be the thing that ends it for you,
right.
but how do
That
you
could be the
deal with
thing.
it?
Yeah,
And to get from 0 to a million, you're
right.
overcoming things, and then a million to 5, and each stage,
Yeah, each stage
something could
has
take
its
you out at
own.
any time.
Yeah.
Plenty of good businesses have gone out because something came up that they weren't expecting, weren't aware of,
Yeah.
and they didn't handle it.
I mean, each stage is hard for sure. And I think that's a really good call, Mike, too. Like when this question came up of like what were the two or three decisions, like you said at the very top of answering the question, there isn't two or three. It's a series of decisions and constant, right? Constantly making the decisions, constantly looking at what you're doing, constantly reviewing. But it's one of the things too, I think that's big is like, stick to it. One thing that I would say two that I respected a ton about Grand Style that I see a lot of people don't do to this day is never shying away from criticism online. Because you're
Yeah,
always going to
yeah,
have hate. You're always going to have people who absolutely hate you. They're not going to like what you're doing. They're not going to like what you have to say. If you are the brand that is deleting comments, not responding, that is so known, right? And now, especially now, right? 10 years ago, 11 years ago, it was a different thing. People maybe would not have caught on to the fact that you've deleted comments, right? But now, and maybe there were those signs weren't very obvious on social media. Now they're very obvious. So if you one thing I would say that would definitely help you grow, even if it seems counterintuitive, is do not don't hide the negative. If you get a negative Google review, respond to it, fix it, right? Like, think of that as a customer had called your customer service and isn't happy with you. Think of, the negative comments. Let's say you put something out on social media and people are just like hating on it. Don't hide away from that. Like, you are behind 3 weeks in getting your orders out, communicate, right? Like, do communicate with your customer, right? Like, don't shy away. Like, people are online and they're like, oh my God, this brand sucks. I ordered a month ago and I still haven't gotten anything. Respond publicly so people see it.
yeah.
I think that's a big thing that was like, um, almost like a must for us at Grand Style is we did not delete, shy away from any of the negativity. It was addressed, right? Sometimes with humor, sometimes with customer service, like getting involved, but it was always addressed, right? So if somebody's just trolling you, like you can kind of laugh it off. But if there's negativity about your business because your logistics are struggling, it happens to every brand, like Mike, like you said, as you grow, different problems, right? And your logistics like cannot get, like your shipping cannot get your stuff out fast enough, right? Not a bad problem to have, but if you address it on a human level, people will know, instead of like you deleting all the comments. And now I go on your page and on this one thing I see 200 comments, but I click on them and there's like 4. That tells me that you've deleted the
Yeah.
196, that you had. Like, don't do it. That's just I don't know, that's my
This
take.
was something
But
my partner, and the founder, Dan Alaric, was so good at. And we did it first. I think we were one of the first too. Christmas 2014 was one of our tipping points where we had a massive amount of growth. And we had just moved into our big facility. We started this move actually the day after Thanksgiving. So Christmas
awesome
season,
timing.
right? As we had to leasing issues and things, blah, 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 right? But
Right.
part of the problem. So we're doing this move and our equipment, we're having issues. And now we're way behind. It
Yeah.
was awful. And people just torching us. And rather than hiding, you know, and we were all working. At that time, I was the head of HR, actually. I was director of HR, but I was working
Yeah.
in the warehouse on one of the machines. I was actually working on a folding machine. I was folding t-shirts. But we did a video. Dan did a video because he was printing. He was working on one of the printing machines, and he just did a video of
Yeah.
showing. He's like, "Hey, look, we're here," and we shot it, and we did a live broadcast at one point on Facebook at like 2 a.m. when we're there, still trying
Yeah.
to make stuff because we're
I
like, "Hey, we're
remember I
really
remember
sorry.
hearing about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're really sorry, but here I am, man. It's 2 o'clock. I'm here. Look at all these people that are here. We wouldn't just set this up. We
Yeah.
showed our employees. People were there. And that, to everyone's credit too, that's how invested everybody was at that time too.
Everybody
Rare.
was very
Yeah, not
invested.
going to have
Yeah.
that again, but
Yeah.
people were there, not for free. We were paying, of course, but
Right.
you know,
Right.
um, yeah, that was really good. And I always insist, and I still think today, I still caution businesses, don't delete. The only kind of comments you can delete are like horribly racist or threats or,
Yeah,
stuff like
like or
that.
threats or something that's
Yeah,
that like,
like
yeah, absolutely.
community violation type stuff like that. Yeah, like delete and ban those
Yeah.
clowns. But if somebody hates your business, don't delete it. Respond
Yeah.
to it though, because I think fans of your business are watching to see how you handle adversity because nobody's expecting a business to be perfect. We're run by humans. We're never going to be perfect. But if you
Yeah.
can get out there and admit to, wow, we messed this up,
Right.
we're behind, sorry, we are here, we're doing our best, I see you. And that's mostly all people want in a complaint or when they're mad or when they go to social media because they think this is the only way to get seen. If I call
Right.
into your customer service line, nobody knows, but I want
Right.
to be seen and I want to
Right.
feel that. So if
Yeah,
people know
absolutely.
you see them and that you get it, we're
Right.
not ignoring you. We understand we have a problem right
Yep.
now and here's what's going on. And don't do a fake PR apology.
Right. Yeah, don't do
This
that.
is where people screw up so badly now. They have a lawyer write
No,
their
don't do that.
apology and like, I'm very
Yeah.
sorry for anyone who felt, you know,
Yeah, you're like, "That's not an apology."
that's not
It's
an
I mean,
apology. It's your
I
PR
think that's
apology.
great.
Get out
I
there and
think
be
that's
a
great advice
human and be
there.
like, hey man, we screwed up. What's the worst that's
Yeah.
going to happen? You're already in a nightmare,
Right.
you know? It's already going
Absolutely.
bad. And I know anyone
Right.
who's out there saying like there's no such thing as bad press. Anyone who says
No,
that,
there is.
there is. Anyone who says that has
There
never
is.
experienced bad press because
Yes,
there is
exactly.
bad press and
Absolutely.
it will
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah.
You need to address
Absolutely.
things and get out there and not to try.
Yeah.
When the PR, the crisis PR people are like, you need to manage the story and you've got to get ahead of the story. And if
Yeah.
you don't fill the vacuum, others will fill the vacuum and you
Yeah.
don't then you're not in control of the narration. You know, it's not
Right,
about
right.
to me any of that.
Yeah.
You do that kind of stuff if you screwed up to the level where you're worried about lawsuits. And now
Right,
I got to be
right.
careful about what I'm saying because I know that whatever I say is going to be in court soon. you know?
Yeah.
But for the most part, none of us have made those kind of mistakes. You've made a customer service error that you need to fix. You know, you did
Yeah.
something wrong, somebody said something dumb on social, you know?
Yeah.
Get out there and own it. Nobody's expecting you to be perfect. Nobody
Yeah.
is perfect, right? But just get
Yeah.
out there and own it. And the easiest thing in the world for anyone to do online is be critical. That stuff everyone wants to have the funniest hate comment. So you're gonna get those. I remember
Yeah.
we ran a contest once, and like we did an unannounced one, and we just like it wasn't even a contest. We just started doing the greatest hits of haters.
Yeah.
Because now they do this, right? Like now was
Yes.
it Jimmy Kimmel maybe does this, right?
Yes.
They read their hate tweets.
Yeah.
We were doing that
Yeah.
over a decade ago.
Yeah. It's
'Cause
interesting.
it
It's
and it
really
takes the
interesting
fire out,
though.
right? Like
Right.
trolls, and if you've been around, I've been around obviously since the beginning of the internet. Trolls feed on the response. They're like a bully,
Right.
right? Bullies have no
They
fun if you
absolutely
don't
do.
respond.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
So
it's
when
really
you
I don't
join
know.
in
It's
on the fun and you're like, "Yeah, yeah, we're
yeah.
stupid." Yeah. Kind of
Right.
takes the, "Oh man, I was expecting you guys to fight with me," and like, you takes the
Yeah.
fun out of it. Takes the
Yeah.
wind out of the sails of all those trolls,
It's
when you join in on it. So,
yeah. Yeah, I think that's great
and I know
advice
how
there.
upsetting it is. You're a business owner. This is your life's
Right.
blood. Feels like
Right.
people are, you're attacking this thing that I've put my whole heart and soul into. And I'm not trying to do anything wrong. I'm
Right.
not trying to hurt people or screw people. I get it. I know how you
Right.
feel on that,
Right.
but
Oh yeah,
nobody
we've
feels the
we've
way
had
about your
our fair
business that
share of
you do.
hate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, we've had our fair share of hate, both personally and in our businesses, and for businesses that we worked for, we've had to manage, that for folks, so completely
And it's
understood,
hard.
but yeah,
I know how
it
hard it
is
is. It
definitely.
feels terrible. I
Yeah.
don't like it. I don't like being criticized. I'm a
No, nobody
human. I don't
does.
like
I mean,
that.
that's human nature,
Yeah.
nobody does.
All those
It's
guys
just
out there who are saying like, "Yeah, I don't care." Like, I
right.
don't know, maybe,
Well, you're a psychopath
psychopaths
if you
have
don't
no
care.
feelings. That's kinda
I'm
like
like,
the hallmark
narcissists
of a
and
psychopath,
psychopaths
right? Like,
fall into that category. Yeah.
yeah, like
Um,
you must have borderline personality issues, like,
right.
to not have
Yeah.
feeling for that stuff.
Yeah,
So
I
I
mean,
don't
you
like it.
do,
I don't
and
like to be criticized. I makes me feel bad because for me
right,
too, like when we put stuff out, Nada, you and I put anything out, we're just trying to do
right,
our best.
right.
We're not trying to be
Yeah,
bad at anything or do anything
right,
wrong or make mistakes. Nobody is.
right. Nobody is, and it's interesting because I think too we've reached a point where people think that if you're out here doing what we're doing right now, which is answering marketing questions, or you're an accountant and you're doing content for yourself, people. It's almost like people fall into two different categories. You're expecting to go viral and have all this like fame, which by the way, you don't want. If you're just a regular business owner, this is a very touchy
Yeah.
territory, right?
Yeah.
Or people will criticize you to criticize you, right? Like, understand that it's so easy for some people to hide behind the screen to tell you how much you suck. We've had comments on our TikTok telling us how wrong we are for calling AI a tool, right?
Yeah.
We've had comments about our own personal takes, our appearance, our whatever the heck you want to say. But, and it's like, is that necessary really? Like, do I need to look like, do I need to look a certain way in order for you to take the advice that I have to give you that's marketing related seriously? And it just, you have to kind of put it in perspective and not be afraid of the criticism to put yourself out there, because it is a net sort it's sort of a necessary part of running a business right now,
Mhm.
right? So um kind of you just it's a task that you have to do. And so I say, like, show up for your business in every capacity, online, in person, however you do it, networking events, promote your business, be a good human that you hopefully are, and I think that will follow. You don't need to chase trends or do any of
Change the
those things.
camera on my TikTok. Can you
What are you
see
doing? Are we looking at the puppy? I think we're gonna close on that note because you guys can't see this on TikTok, but Mike's puppy is
on
just
on
sort
my
of
you can see it on
chilling
TikTok
right next
though.
to his desk. So
He is.
you guys on
I
TikTok
don't
have
know if
seen
he's
him.
being picked up on the mic how much he's snoring.
No, I don't think we can hear him how much he's snoring on either, but
That's Beefy.
you know,
He's name's Ribeye, everybody, but his name we call him Beef. We just rescued him.
yeah,
Today is his 7th day with us.
yeah.
Rescued from the Naperville Humane Shelter. So
No, he's
name
a good
drop. They don't
puppy.
pay me, believe it or not.
Good puppy.
I'm sure
Well,
you
yeah.
know. People know looking at our stuff that we're not being paid, I think.
No, we're not being paid. We are
Yeah.
literally here just because we actually genuinely like what we do.
Yeah.
And so we're going to keep showing up and talking about the things that we do. And if you come across us and any of what we say is helpful, fantastic. If you want to leave us comments, by the way, folks on TikTok, we're going off of both of our accounts live on TikTok here, The Cynical Marketers, which is our podcast, which is also on YouTube, but we're going YouTube live here from the Big Brain Strategy, which is our
Yep.
agency side or consultancy.
Check
Leave
us
us
out,
comments
bigbrainstrategy.com.
and
We've
questions anywhere,
got a lot of cool stuff we can do.
Yeah,
Here's our sales pitch.
bigbrainstrategy.com. You guys, we have a ton of free audits. So that first question that we had in the live that was like, how the heck do I know what's wrong and what to do next? Go to bigbrainstrategy.com. Look at our free resources. We have an audit for every marketing channel. Use it. And there's one that actually encompasses all of it. So use it and, download that. And that would definitely help
Using
you out.
everybody's favorite tools. I told when
Yeah.
someone says we're anti-AI, actually these audits are designed for you to use one of your tools
With AI.
because this is
Yeah.
where I think that AI stands as a strength in the analysis piece.
Right.
Um,
So use those.
because that's what I love it for. So
Yeah.
I set those things up for you to help you guide you through how to use AI to do these things.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
all right, everybody, we hit our hour. We're going to do
Guys,
this every day for a bit.
11 to noon Central.
Yeah, we'll be back every day.
Yep. Thank you all for
Going
joining
live
us.
for an
Thank you
audience
guys for joining us.
of several people.
Several people who might learn something. We're excited. So
yeah, we are.
thank you guys for
All right,
being here.
we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, y'all.